minds that sought peace were nowhere to be seen. The wind of the hatred had returned a whirlwind. The city walls quaked as furious men shouted for blood of his own kind. Even the fiery rays of the midday sun couldn't illuminate the darkness that was engulfing Jerusalem. By this time, news of 2 Arabian deaths that took place during a friction at the Jewish neighborhood of Mea Shearim reached the Arabs, who were already in a killing spree near Jerusalem's old city. Upon hearing it, the shapes that were once called human turned into shadows of annihilation. Violence quickly spread to other parts of Palestine. The angry Arab mobs went from town to town burning and killing, showing the horrible brutality humans are capable of. British authorities were irresponsibly and ridiculously underprepared. The police force was too small. The army wasn't in great shape either. Near Jaffa Gate, Arabs attacked unarmed Jewish men. The policemen posted their watch as the innocents were butchered. They reasoned that if they had shot into the Arab crowd, the mob would have turned their anger on the police. Despite being attacked, Jerusalem's Jews choose not to defend themselves or open fire except in the Yemen Moshe neighborhood. The Jews heard about what happened to their brothers. The dereliction of the police terrified them. Yitzhak Ben-Zvi, an accepted leader and later president of Israel, realized that no help is coming. So he demanded that weapons be handed to the Jews for self-defense, but was refused. While Jews were in search of hiding and means to save themselves, the rioters continued the violence. The Jewish hospital in Jerusalem was attacked by the Islamists. The administrative director of Hadassah Hospital in Jerusalem sent a cable to New York describing the casualties and that Arabs were attacking several Jewish hospitals. Every brick in the holy city learned the Arab wrath that day. The men who survived the nightmare were too frightened to speak about it. In a few instances, Jews fought back by attacking Arabs and destroying Arab property in retaliation. A police officer opened fire on an Arab crowd and succeeded in beating off an attack on the quarter which lies between Jaffa and Tel Aviv. The worst instance of a Jewish attack on Arabs occurred in this quarter, where the imam of a mosque and 6 other persons were killed. Later on that day, the British authorities armed 41 Jewish special constables, 18 Jewish ex-soldiers and a further 60 Jews were issued staves to assist in the defense of Jewish quarters in Jerusalem. The Mufti of Jerusalem stated that there was a large crowd of excited Arabs in the Haram area who were also demanding arms, and that they view the retention of Jews as special constables carrying arms was a breach of faith by the government. A breach of faith, says the men that feasted on humanity. The government, however, disbanded and disarmed the special constables. The Hebron Yeshiva, a branch of the famed Slobodka Yeshiva, was also attacked during the riots. An Arab crowd gathered outside it and threw stones through the windows. Only 2 people were inside, a student and the sexton. The student was grabbed by the Arab crowd, who stabbed him to death. The sexton survived by hiding in a well. Jews in Palestine had a long night. They didn't flee because they knew they had nowhere else to go. So they kept vigil. Some prayed for help and others prepared for the Neo-Romans. People who wanted to consider the past day as a nightmare that will not occur again had woken into the brutal reality. Neither prayer nor fervor favored Jews the next day. All of Israel hoped that the evil that took their brothers won't come for them. This hope was misplaced for the people of Hebron. On the land that the Son of God walked, men of death marched with vicious notions that no God would approve of. On August 24, 1929 in Hebron, infuriated Arabs stormed the Jewish quarter, killing and raping every man, women, and children who had the misfortune of encountering them. Older men were dragged from their bed and brutally killed. The manslayers advanced with no conscience, murdering everything that moved and looting houses that aren't burning. They left no man walking and no house standing. On the aftermath, around 65 to 68 Jews were killed. Around 58 were mutilated and tortured but lived to tell the tale. On their way, the mob attacked an infirmary operated by the Hadassah Medical Organization. The Beit Hadassah Clinic had 3 floors with the infirmary, the pharmacy, and the synagogue on the top floor. Islamists rushed into the hospital, destroyed the pharmacy, torched the synagogue, and befouled the Torah scrolls inside. To worsen things, the Hebron Yeshiva, which witnessed the death of a student the previous day, was surrounded again by the Islamists, this time armed with staves and axes, and attacked and killed 2 Jewish boys, one stoned to death and the other stabbed. More than 70 Jews, including the yeshiva students, sought refuge in the house of Eliezer Dan Slonim, the son of the rabbi of Hebron, but were massacred by an Arab mob. Survivors and reporters recounted the carnage that occurred at the Slonim residence. Moses Harbader, an 18-year-old, was stabbed and 2 of his fingers were severed. He described at a later trial of some Arab rioters how a fellow student had been mutilated and killed. 42 teachers and students were murdered at the yeshiva. It would be puzzling for a sane mind to imagine one human killing other human whom he had never seen before and could not possibly have had any possible vendetta against. If there is no such vengeance at play, then how can someone be that cruel? The truth is that the rioters didn't see a human in the prey. Instead, they saw an object to loosen freely on the fire that's been mounting in their minds. The Holy Land became a furnace that day, and the vastness of that fire terrified the world. Sir John Chancellor, the British High Commissioner, visited Hebron and later wrote to his son, "The horror of it is beyond words. In one house I visited not less than 25 Jews, men and women, were murdered in cold blood." Sir Walter Shaw concluded in the Palestine disturbances report that unspeakable atrocities have occurred in Hebron. In the irony of ironies, the Arabs ended up doing everything that they accused Jews of having done. Cruelty is birthright to no one. On the cursed days when few butchers thought the opposite, the sword of evil hissed over Hebron, and the good and the bad fell alike. The Shaw report described the attack. Arabs in Hebron made a most ferocious attack on the Jewish ghetto and on isolated Jewish houses lying outside the crowded quarters of the town. More than 60 Jews, including many women and children, were murdered and more than 50 were wounded. This savage attack, of which no condemnation could be too severe, was accompanied by wanton destruction and looting. Jewish synagogues were desecrated, a Jewish hospital which had provided treatment for Arabs was attacked and ransacked, and only the exceptional personal courage displayed by Mr. Kafarata, the one British police officer in the town, prevented the outbreak from developing into a general massacre of the Jews in Hebron. Hundreds of Jews were saved by their more benevolent Arab neighbors who offered them sanctuary from the mob by hiding them in their own houses, while others survived by taking refuge in the British police station at Beit Romano, on the outskirts of the city. When the massacre ended, the surviving Jews were evacuated by the British. After the Hebron massacre, no large-scale disorder disturbed the afflicted for 2 days, however there were isolated attacks and the constant fear of death. The kibbutz of Mishmar HaEmek was attacked on August 26 by an Arab mob which was dispersed by the locals and British police. The same day, the Nebi Akasha Mosque in Jerusalem was attacked by a group of Jews. The mosque was badly damaged and the tombs of the prophets which it contained were desecrated. On August 28, an Arab mob attacked the kibbutz again, however the British authorities had ordered the kibbutz members to evacuate the previous day. Seeing the building empty, the mob burned its barn, uprooted the trees and vandalized its cemetery. The members of the kibbutz returned on September 7. In Safed on August 29, 18 Jews were killed, some sources say 20, and 80 wounded. The attackers looted and set fire to houses and killed Jewish inhabitants. The main Jewish street was looted and burned, the Shaw report stated. At about 5:15 p.m. on the 29th of August, Arab mobs attacked the Jewish ghetto in Safed, in the course of which around 45 Jews were killed or wounded. Several Jewish houses and shops were set on fire, and there was a repetition of the wanton destruction which had been so prominent a feature of the attack at Hebron. An eyewitness describes the pogrom that took place in Safed. It was soon perpetrated by Arabs from Safed and local villages armed with weapons and kerosene tins. I observed mutilated and burned bodies of victims and the burned body of a woman tied to a window. Several people were murdered. A schoolteacher, wife and mother and a lawyer, were cut to pieces with knives, and the attackers entered an orphanage and smashed children's heads and cut off their hands. Another victim was stabbed repeatedly and trampled to death. The Safed massacre marked the end of the disturbances.